Hi, this is TapCat, and welcome back to my ongoing quest to build the ultimate theme park, TapCatLand. Now, unlike my last installment, where it took me quite a while to come up with the idea of a pirate grotto, and then more time besides that to figure out exactly what that was going to entail, I came into this section pretty much knowing what I wanted to do. The only challenge is that it involved something I haven't done a lot of, and that is customizing buildings. So specifically, we're going to get ready the central hub for the tropical area and all of the businesses that are going to go there. And so as you can see, here, I'm just experimenting with different parts, different things that I could put on this building. I had at this point already designed a number of custom shops, and I had used all of the different walls and things like that were available in the game more than once, and I wanted something that felt different. So this was my first time just taking kind of small decorative pieces and turning it into the walls, and I actually was pretty happy with how it came out. I did a little bit of experimenting. I think this also may have been the first one that I designed. Like, I did a lot of bright colors because I just thought that was appropriate for the tropical setting. But I just picked colors that I liked, for lack of a better term. And I started incorporating the colors in the actual sign for that business at some point. And I know I did that here. And I was very happy, with the result. So anyway, this is definitely, to me, where this game has a lot of depth, is that there's so many things you can use for building, and both, everything in the building piece category, but also all of the scenery. You can attach basically anything, onto one of these shops. And it's just figuring out what will work well together. So it took quite a bit of time, but that had more to do with my need to learn than the process itself being super difficult. Another thing that I learned when you're doing this is that you can add stuff whether or not you're editing the building, but it will only be moved when you move the building if you added it while you were editing. I don't know if that makes sense. But at any rate, if you're going to add anything to a building, make sure that the game knows you're editing it. Like, see in the upper right-hand corner, it says it's editing that building. One last note on this process. I did the creation of these buildings at a basic level just in a sandbox map because I wanted to be able to let the game run without worrying about the theme park and anything that might be going on. And so that's why I'm in an alpine setting and you're not seeing any of the tropical stuff. Now, once the basic structures were done, it was time to bring them into the park. But first, I wanted to get rid of the last of this sandstone path that I used to have running all through here. I really didn't like it. And I found I did not have to do a custom thing like I did for the bridge through the grotto. I'm pretty happy with this pattern, that comes with the game. And that's good because with the circular path, the thing I did in there wouldn't work. But anyway, I did find integrating these structures into the park. I mean, I knew this would be the case, but it definitely was a lot more involved than just slapping them down. Basically, the impression that I wanted to give is that this was like a sea town, a little village, maybe a fishing village or something. And so these things needed to be sitting on the water for the most part. At one point, I had considered kind of creating a little island or something like that for some of them to sit on. I ended up getting away from that. Now you can see I'm struggling fairly badly here trying to line up this one log. Even sped up, it really took me a good while. But again, pretty much all this stuff that I'm doing it for the first time as you see it. And so, yeah, I'm not practiced at it at all. I'm not good at it. I got better at it as we went along, though. So anyway, that was one element is, hey, I want this to look, like this little coastal village. I also wanted each building to feel at least somewhat unique. I don't want to just slap these things down and they all have the same kind of setup. So I certainly did reuse, like these supports that you see here where it looks like it's kind of on stilts in a way. I did use that on more than one, but I didn't use it on everybody. And just as when I was trying to make, the basic structures, I tried to mix it up as much as I could. I did the same thing here. I wanted each one to have just a little bit of unique character. And so another thing I found is that there were ones where I thought I was done, but once I put it in here, I would tinker with it and stuff. Like the Cosmic Cow that has those little flower baskets on the front. Later I'll move those up. But we'll come to that when, in a little bit. A good example of the process is this loony balloon. So you can see I had set this up, at a basic level. I even had a little balloon display off to the right and a piece of a jetty. But once it was here, I just realized, this is so inadequate. And so I started adding to it and, bringing in another jetty piece. And, then you start looking at it going, well, gee, now I have more room. And, do I need to put something else on the second jetty piece? Elevation was another big thing. Like the bottoms, the jetty posts were not making it down to the surface of the water. So I tried lowering the buildings. Later, I started adding posts or logs, but things to the bottom of the jetty so that it just looked like it went all the way down into the water and, was supported. And this ended up, as I say, like I thought when I built them, I knew I would do a little bit more, but the process ended up being a lot more involved than what I really pictured. And yeah, holy moly. I don't know. I'm actually, happy with how they turned out, but it was an interesting process getting there. I'll just say that. And then there was the rope fence. A lot of rope fence. I don't know how many of these pieces I placed, but it was quite a few. So as you can see, because I'm going around in a circle, you have to rotate them just a little bit, each way. That isn't so bad. But the thing that I wish I had thought of before I started is placing these before any of the things that would prove to be a break in the path. I'll show you a little bit more detail in a minute. But yeah, I ended up having to do a lot of rearranging things because as I figured out the overall flow of the rope fence, the rest of the layout didn't necessarily agree with that very well. The other thing that I also wish I had thought of before I started was placing these bamboo torches. So I placed them way back when I did the grotto. I should not have done that because I hadn't even conceived of doing the fence yet. And so I just dropped them down at what appeared to be more or less regular intervals, and I was happy with that. But once I started putting this in, I thought it made more sense to integrate the torches into the posts. And it's not that bad, but I guess I just feel like I made the job a little bit harder for myself by having placed them all in the wrong spot first. But I don't know. In the end, maybe it really didn't matter much either way. Speaking of breaks in that circular path, this was one of them. I decided that it's time to start integrating the paths for these rides into, the main hub at last. We are actually getting reasonably close to opening this area up to the public. I didn't want to do that while we were kind of under major construction, but we're actually getting most of the essential pieces in place. So it's kind of cool to see this start coming together, and it makes me feel like, who knows, we might actually make this crazy thing come together and work after all. So I mentioned before that I had these issues with the rope fence, and what it comes down to is this: because it's a nice looking piece, but it isn't flexible at all. You can't make them narrower or wider or anything. They don't bend. And so as long as you're more or less on a straightaway, it's fine. But when you come to these areas where, it opens up and you have to make a turn or something like that, I could just not always, make it fit the right way. So you see, like, I'm placing other things there to kind of take the spot that the fence would occupy, and essentially trying to create an alternate barrier for like the customers. And I don't know, it was the best idea that I could come up with. I also mentioned that I moved those flowers. This is why I ended up running the fence all the way up to the buildings, and all of a sudden now those flowers look like they're just getting smushed. And I'm really, I wasn't as happy. Like, I loved it when I saw them, when I was building them in isolation. But with the fence, even after moving them, I don't feel like it's as good as it was. But, overall, it is what it is. I'm trying to balance, multiple facets at the same time. And I think, again, I think overall it comes together reasonably well. I do really like the rope fence and how it fits in the tropical area for sure. But see, here again, you see, like, I'm struggling to get this fitted just the way I want. So it was an ongoing process, and something that if I were doing it again, I would just approach it a little bit differently and try to integrate these from the beginning. And I mentioned before, we're getting close to opening it up. So that's right, it's trash bin time. And I think we've covered all of the things that I did leading up through this installment. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is show you the finished product. And once again, we're just going to follow some park visitors through it. And I'm going to stop talking. So thank you for watching. I hope we see you next time.